Agriculture has never been simple. It's shaped by weather and markets, policy and politics, forces that often originate far from the farm gate. Headlines move fast, policies shift, markets react, but the impact of those changes doesn't just show up on screen, it shows up on farms and ranches, in families and rural communities. This podcast is about taking the time to explore what's happening in agriculture and what it means for the people living it, with clarity, context, and perspective. I'm Corryn La Rue, and this is Farm Unfiltered. The USDA confirmed the first case of New World screwworm in the United States since 1966, triggering an aggressive federal and state response in South Texas as officials work to contain and eradicate the flesh-eating parasite before it can spread. Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins announced the confirmation Wednesday evening during a briefing with the Texas media, saying laboratory testing at USDA's National Veterinary Services Laboratory in Ames, Iowa, confirmed New World screwworm in a 3-week-old calf in La Pryor, Texas, located in Zavala County, roughly 50 miles from the Mexican border.
Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time walking us through how we got here, what we've done the last year and 4 months to prepare for this moment, and then what now needs to happen as we pivot to a new day, and that day is now having the New World screwworm on our side of the border for the first time in decades, other than a deer outbreak in 2017 in Florida.
The infected animal was discovered on a cow-calf operation after a private veterinarian collected samples and submitted them through the Texas Animal Health Commission for testing. Federal and state officials emphasize that only one confirmed case has been identified and no additional detections have been reported.
Today, we are taking immediate action. This afternoon and evening has already begun to deploy to contain and eradicate this case of the New World screwworm in South Texas. We have, number one, formed a unified incident command team with the Texas Animal Health Commission and deployed our APHIS response team and personnel to the area. They are already on the ground, and you'll hear from our undersecretary, and APHIS is a part of his team, Dudley Hoskins, in just a minute. We have established a 20-kilometer infested zone around the detection and implementing quarantines, movement controls, and surveillance in this area. We have expedited targeted release of the sterile New World screwworm flies, which is how we solve for the issue, of course, by immediately deploying a 4 million ground release chambers in the area, in addition to the 4 million sterile flies per week already being released aerially in the area. We are increasing trapping and surveillance for New World screwworm flies along the border just outside of the dispersal area. We are implementing New World screwworm surveillance for the New World screwworm flies along the border and just outside of the dispersal area. We are implementing additional surveillance and management strategies in wildlife, and of course, conducting targeted outreach in the local area as well as across the state.
While many in the agriculture industry are familiar with the sterile fly technique, I want to take a moment to explain what that means for those who might need a recap. The sterile fly technique, also known as the sterile insect technique or SIT, is a pest control method that uses laboratory-raised male flies that have been sterilized through radiation. Those sterile males are released into areas where New World screwworm populations exist and then mate with wild female flies. Because female screwworm flies typically mate only once in their lifetime, mating with a sterile male means they produce no offspring. As more sterile males are released, fewer fertile eggs are produced, causing the screwworm population to steadily decline until it can be eliminated entirely. The approach was first tested by USDA in the 1950s and became the foundation of the successful eradication campaign that eliminated New World screwworm from the U.S. in 1966. It was later used to push the parasite out of Mexico and much of Central America. The technique is considered environmentally friendly because it targets a specific pest without widespread use of insecticides. Today, USDA and its international partners produce and release millions of sterile screwworm flies each week as the primary tool for controlling and eradicating outbreaks.
The sterile insect technique, when paired with surveillance, movement restrictions, and education and outreach, is the most effective strategy we have for controlling this pest. The sterile insect is not only the most effective tool we have, but it is also considered one of the most environmental friendly insect pest control methods ever developed. USDA has invested heavily in the sterile insect production since New World Screwworm cases started increasing in the Trump administration in the last year and 4 months. Since the outbreak in Central America began, USDA, we have expanded operations at the production plant in Panama, allowing it to produce over 100 million sterile New World Screwworm flies per week, which have been dispersed in affected countries, including Mexico, to slow the spread of the parasite.
In response, USDA and the Texas Animal Health Commission have established a unified incident command structure and deployed animal health personnel to the area. Officials have also created a 20-kilometer infested zone surrounding the detection site and implemented quarantines, movement controls, and enhanced surveillance measures.
The only way this spreads is through animal movement. It's not because the fly flies tens of miles or hundreds of miles on its own. And this was always the problem with the last administration, the open border policies, the movement of humans and their livestock from South America through Central America and through Mexico, and then, of course, the illicit movement of cattle with the cartels. For us to contain this pest in the limited area where it currently exists will entail everyone respecting the common good of all Texas producers and following our protocols and our animal movement restrictions.
Texas Animal Commission Executive Director Dr. Buddy Dinges says all warm-blooded animals within the quarantine zone are subject to movement restrictions.
Very important that all animal owners understand the importance of not moving their animals out of this zone at this time. Please help us prevent any further movement of this pest by staying put and contacting the Texas Animal Health Commission if you need to be permitted out. No movement of warm-blooded species will be allowed out of this zone without an inspection by an animal health official. The key things that people need to know at this stage are, number one, report suspicions immediately. If you suspect your animal may be infested with New World screwworms, notify the Texas Animal Health Commission or your local veterinarian immediately. Quick notification leads to quick detection and quick response. To stop the pest from spreading, animals still need to be able to move. We'll just make sure that they are moving safely and not moving the screwworm with it. Number two, this is not a food safety issue. This is a food production issue. New World screwworms do not infest meat, fruits, vegetable, or other food sources. And number three, infestations from this pest could be prevented. Animal owners need to look at their animals as often as possible and stay vigilant monitoring for wounds that can be covered and treated. This is not an infectious disease, and these flies have to lay their eggs in or near a wound for an animal to become infested. Treat and cover the wounds as quickly as possible. And lastly, number four, this is also a highly treatable condition if you do not get a case. We have many tools in our toolkit today to prevent the devastating impacts.
USDA has dispatched a 5-member strike team consisting of veterinary medical officers and animal health technicians to assist Texas officials with inspections, surveillance, outreach, and containment efforts. Additional personnel are standing by if needed.
This includes a variety of other aspects as far as the ground release chambers, and we have already been being able to deploy traps as well as sterile insects from aerial dispersal mechanisms into this area for some time now. And so back in January, we had actually shared with many of the stakeholders that we were starting to lean forward aggressively, just in case something like this happened, and started to be able to deploy flies about 50 miles over the U.S. border. And so we're continuing to be very forward leaning in our posture. Since February of this year, we've already dispersed over 129 million flies using aerial and ground release chambers as well as vehicle dispersal methods in Texas. We've had trap lines that have been stretching across the southern states of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California since July 2025.
The agency has also accelerated the release of sterile flies, the cornerstone of the eradication strategy that successfully eliminated New World screwworm from the United States 6 decades ago. Rollins says USDA immediately deployed 4 million sterile flies through ground release chambers around the affected area. Those releases are in addition to approximately 4 million sterile flies already being dispersed aerially each week in the region. Officials revealed that USDA had already began proactively releasing sterile flies into South Texas months before the first U.S. detection occurred. So since February, more than 129 million sterile flies have been dispersed through aerial, vehicle, and ground-based release systems.
Over the last year and a couple of months, since coming into office early last spring, January, February, the USDA has deployed more than 8,000 traps along the U.S.-Mexico border, capable of detecting the New World Screwworm. So 8,000 traps have been deployed in the last year and a couple of months. USDA has examined over 58,000 fly samples and examined over 19,000 wildlife for New World Screwworm, all with a zero confirmed detection until today. So this is not something we've kind of been sitting back and twiddling our thumbs and waiting for. We tested, as I said, over 58,000 fly samples over the last year, taken from about 8,000 traps, and have been dispersing the flies all along the border as the screwworm moved closer and closer.
Officials repeatedly stressed that the discovery doesn't represent a food safety threat. New World Screwworm is not a disease, but rather the larval stage of a parasitic fly that feeds on living tissue. Female flies lay eggs in open wounds or body openings of warm-blooded animals. Once the eggs hatch, the larvae burrow into healthy flesh, creating painful and potentially devastating infestations. The pest can affect cattle, sheep, goats, horses, wildlife, pets, and in rare cases, humans. Rollins emphasizes that screwworms do not infest meat, fruits, vegetables, or processed food products. USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service also maintains inspection procedures designed to prevent any affected animals from entering the food supply. Officials say the infected calf is expected to recover because the infestation was identified and treated early. Federal and state officials are also urging pet owners to remain vigilant. Rollins notes that dogs and cats have accounted for some screwworm detections in northern Mexico and encourage residents to inspect their pets for wounds, unusual drainage, or signs of discomfort. USDA has deployed trained detector dogs to border crossings and plans to increase inspections involving animals entering the U.S. Authorities are also asking producers and animal owners to report suspicious wounds immediately and monitor livestock closely. Congressional ag leaders sought to reassure producers following the announcement. House Ag Committee Chairman Glenn G.T. Thompson and Senate Ag Committee Chairman John Bozeman praised USDA's preparations and emphasized that officials have spent more than a year planning for the possible detection of a domestic issue. They say, quote, "For well over a year, Secretary Brooke Rollins and her team at USDA have been working around the clock alongside federal agencies, state partners, and animal health experts to prevent New World Screwworm from entering the United States longer than many thought possible, and to ensure we're prepared to respond to a potential domestic case. The detection of New World Screwworm within our borders should not be cause for panic, but rather time for the full deployment of the next phase of the whole of government response USDA has been planning for months," unquote. The confirmation follows months of concern over the parasite's steady advance through Central America and Mexico. USDA officials say the current outbreak began after New World Screwworm breached a long-standing biological barrier in Panama's Darien Gap in 2021. Cases increased significantly in Panama by 2023 before spreading northward through Central America and eventually into southern Mexico in late 2024. A small outbreak in Florida Keys deer population was successfully eradicated in 2017 using the same approach. Today, USDA's primary sterile fly production facility in Panama produces more than 100 million flies a week. The agency has invested an additional $21 million to renovate a production facility in Metapop, Mexico, which is expected to begin operations this month and eventually produce up to 100 million additional flies per week. USDA is also investing $750 million in a sterile fly production facility at Moore Air Force Base in South Texas. Once operational, the facility is expected to produce approximately 300 million sterile flies per week and become the largest facility in its kind in history. Officials estimate that between 400 million and 500 million sterile flies per week may ultimately be needed to fully eradicate the current outbreak and push the parasite back toward its historical containment zone. For now, animal health officials say their focus remains on containment. Thompson and Bozeman both said in their statements, quote, "We have the tools, resources, and an action plan to aggressively respond, enhance surveillance, and prevent further spread," unquote. As inspectors, veterinarians, ranchers, and animal health officials mobilize across South Texas, USDA leaders say the next several weeks will be critical in determining whether the detection remains an isolated case or becomes the start of a broader outbreak. Within their statement, Thompson and Bozeman said, quote, "We have successfully eradicated this threat to livestock, wildlife, and animal health before, and we're confident we will do so again," unquote. As always, the goal here is to better understand what's happening in agriculture and what it means beyond the headlines. I'm Corryn La Rue, and this is Farm Unfiltered.